So a sleepover. That was the excitement for your weekend? Yeah. Nothing else, that's all. Yeah. I had a funeral. Woohoo. Not for somebody I knew, but one I had to work. Worked a funeral Saturday. Went out to lunch afterwards. Jason worked it too. He worked the AV booth and I sang. And then Sunday was a normal day. Yesterday I ran all over God's country trying to find supplies for this lab because my supplier didn't deliver the normal stuff. So we were kind of out of luck. And even considered, I don't think it's going to work great, but we shall see. We shall see. Excellent, excellent. Are y'all in a play right now? Currently in something? What are you in right now?
Little Mermaid and the Grinch.
That's right, Little Mermaid and the Grinch still? I thought that was over, no?
And in February.
Oh, okay. The Little Mermaid, that's what I knew it was something. What roles were you doing in that? You're her sisters, Ariel's sisters. Hey, Evan, how are you? Good. Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah.
Do anything fun? No.
I know it's fun just with me.
All right, that's cool. What'd y'all do? Just chill?
Play fast
Ah, very good. Indoors or outdoors?
outdoors.
It's chilly, wasn't it? Yeah, I was outside several times yesterday and it was.
My face was red.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's about to get a whole lot colder too. We're gonna get a big cold snap coming in these next couple days.
Give up snow.
Yeah, they keep changing it. Every time I look, it's changed. It was next week, then it was Sunday. It's like it's speeding up, and it depends on obviously which weather service you look at. But like right now, what's it say? Let's see. Last night it said there was a 40%, 46% chance of snow on Sunday, but that changed. Now it's 59% chance of ice with an exclamation point. Oh, danger, danger. So that's Sunday. And then next Saturday, we got a 45% chance of snow on Saturday. Now that, and then the Tuesday after that, now we're looking at snow. So that's going to be fun. Wow. All right. Well, I don't have any gymnastics meets that I'm supposed to be at. So, well, I do on Saturday, but not Sunday. So that's good. All right. Are we ready? Yes. Ready to go? All right. So we have moved on from protists to plants. All right. So now we're going to talk about plants today. So first off, here was your homework assignment. And in case you didn't, now some people were confused because they didn't realize that like number 6 here is also number 6 here is also number 6 here, that it's the same thing in all three. But most people had no problem with that. I just had like one, maybe two questions about it. So first off, that was our paramecium. That was number 1. And number 2 was this was the amoeba. Number 3 is right here. And so those things made up nucleus, right? Number 4 is pointing in here and in here. And that was going to be a food vacuole. And you know that because there's something inside of it. Number 5 was pointing at this big old thing here. And that is, whoops, where'd it go? I just lost it. Oh, sorry, number 5 is pointing here. That's cytoplasm here, in here, wherever you see cytoplasm. I was looking at the wrong thing. 6 is pointing to this guy here, this guy here, this guy here. Now, in the amoeba, they don't draw it like a starburst, but they usually do draw it like a starburst in most other organisms. And that's how you know it's a contractile vacuole, because it has those little stars on it to let you know that it can squeeze and expand. And number 7 were these little hairs, so that's your cilia. Number 8 was this whip-like tail, so that's a flagellum. Number 9 were these extensions here, so those are pseudopods. And then 10, that was your euglena. All right. So what's the color of life? That might seem like a weird question, right? Because living things can be just about any color. But for a minute, like if you close your eyes and you imagine what's it look like to be surrounded by life, what color do you envision?
Green.
Green. Yes, lots of green. You might have imagined yourself in a forest or a jungle, but green, and that's the color of plants. You're right. That is exactly where we're headed here, Evan. So let's talk about plants. What are plants? Nearly all plants are what kind of organisms that make their own food? What's it called when you make your own food through photosynthesis? What kind of organism does that? Hmm? An autotroph. That's a girl. Speak up. You got it. An autotroph. So nearly all plants are autotrophs that make their own food through photosynthesis. There are some plants that are carnivorous, right? They eat bugs. That's not all they eat, but they also eat insects. Oh, like a Venus flytrap or a pitcher plant? Yeah, those are so cool. I love them. They're really neat. Yeah, yep. So, what do plants need to live? The lives of plants revolve around the need for a couple of things, including the movement of water and nutrients through the body. So, what else do they need? They need to move water. What else do they need? They need sunlight, nutrients from soil or from something, and also gas exchange. They need to be able to exchange gas because think about it. Isn't oxygen involved in photosynthesis? You need oxygen to, carbon dioxide. You need carbon dioxide to do photosynthesis, and then you're going to release oxygen at the end. So they need to be able to do that to exchange your gas. So what about plant cells? Okay, plants are eukaryotic. Well, my mom is below your feet, baby. She's down there going like this. Okay, plants are eukaryotic. What's that mean? Eukaryotes do what? They have, come on, you guys gotta know this one. A membrane-bound nucleus. Yes. Okay. So they are eukaryotic. Their cells have rigid cell walls. Plants have different types of cells that make up specialized tissues which compose structures for performing specific tests. Do you remember what the cell walls of plants are made of? Cellulose, which we call fiber when we're talking about it in terms of food, right? Not the same stuff that makes up the cell walls of fungus. That's chitin. All right, so why green? What do plants contain that is green? What are those structures inside of a plant cell that are green? Come on, you know we've done it before many times. Those are going to be your chloroplasts, right? See all those? Those are all chloroplasts. So chloroplasts are green because they contain a green pigment. What pigment is that? What's the pigment that's green? You need it for photosynthesis. Chlorophyll, right? You have to have chlorophyll in order to do photosynthesis. So how do plants get onto land? Plants started in the water. Like we talked last week about how some of our algae is very closely related to plants. So the first plant life that was truly like a plant and not like a protist or an algae is going to have been in the water. But those plants had to move onto land. So how do you get from cells that are floating in water, therefore they aren't going to dry up, right? And they're able to exchange gas through the water or through the surface of the water. How do you get from that to a giant tree? So basically, you have to start with going from your single cell to your multi-cell plants. So it says here the first plants evolved from organisms, much like the multicellular, what were we just talking about? Very similar to the algae, the green algae. That's kelp, right? That's algae. So that's not technically a plant. That's algae, but it's right on that line. And that's how we get to plants from algae is from stuff like this, right? We're right on the edge. So how do plants prevent water loss? The exterior structures of a plant are designed to prevent water loss. Plant leaves possess a waxy, it's like a skin. What's the word for that? Does anybody know what it is? It's on the leaves. It's kind of waxy. It keeps the moisture inside. It's called a cuticle. Do you have a cuticle? This is your cuticle, right? Where your nail and top of your finger come together is a cuticle. We call it a cuticle, that waxy covering on a leaf that keeps the moisture inside. This is important because when you're living in the water, you don't need to worry about drying out. right? You don't need to worry about running out of moisture or your water evaporating out of your cells because you're in water. But when you move on land, you have to do something to that, protect those cells so that they don't dry up, so it doesn't evaporate. Same thing is true with eggs. Think about amphibian eggs. Think about frog eggs. What do frog eggs look like? What do frog eggs look like?
Oh,
Yeah, they're like little jelly-like, yeah, and they're little bubbly things. They float in water. But what's a chicken egg? What's that look like? Is it?
and then
Yeah, but what's outside? Outside's got a shell, right? A hard shell that keeps it from drying out. So, how do land plants transport water and nutrients? Some plants have evolved specialized vascular tissues, vascular like veins and arteries, just like we have. Vascular tissues for transporting water and nutrients. These vascular tissues are so effective they can support even the tops of skyscraping redwoods. So they're able to get nutrients and water up and down, all the way from the roots way to the tippy top of these giant trees. So, how do they reproduce? Many plants are going to reproduce sexually, combining male and female cells to create a zygote. Now, they can do this with themselves. Flowers, in particular, have both male and female structures. So, a flowering plant can self pollinate, for example, but it's still a form of sexual reproduction. It doesn't need a different organism. It can pollinate itself because it has both types of gametes. Then there are also other ways plants can reproduce, like they can, you ever had like irises or daffodils or something that grows from bulbs, you'll notice that they make new versions. The bulbs keep growing underground and then new plants pop up from there. That's another way that they can reproduce. Four major periods of plant evolution. So if we look way back here in the Paleozoic era, we're going to see these charophytes, which is your group of green algae. We said last week that charophytes were the algae that were most similar to plants. So this is where the branch kind of begins, are with these charophytes. And then we, still in the Paleozoic, we get these these bryophytes, which we're going to be talking about. And then we get early vascular plants, gymnosperms and angiosperms. And we're going to talk about these types of plants in this order: bryophytes, seedless vascular, gymnosperms, and angiosperms, which are types of vascular as well, seeded vascular. All right, so we're going to go in that order because this is our least evolved to our most evolved. All right. So this is in your binder, so you should be able to answer these for me. So photosynthesis is what? A, B, or C?
see.
C, very good. Process in which plants make food. Tissue is what? B, right. A group of cells that have a specific job, and obviously a chloroplast then is going to be a structure in a plant cell in which food is made. Picture shows a plant cell. Circle the letter of the structure that is the cell wall. Which one of these is showing the cell wall? Can you tell? A, yeah. So what you see here is, obviously it's not going to be B and it's not going to be C. But you need to look closely and you notice that there's a cell wall, and then inside that there's also a cell membrane. Remember, there's a membrane inside the wall. Plants that do not have a system of tubes moving water and food are called what? What do we call those? They don't have a vascular system, so they're non-vascular plants. Very good. All right, circle the letter of each sentence that is true. The cuticle helps support tall plants. Is that true? No, that's not its job. But that is, water and food move through vascular tissue, and not all plants reproduce by sexual reproduction. Each word in the box, read each word in the box and each sentence below and fill in the correct word. So there's your word bank. A fertilized egg is called what? A zygote. Very good. And sperm cells join with an egg cell in what process? Good. Fertilization. Very good. And in this table below, you have non-vascular and vascular. In a non-vascular, do they have a vascular system? No, because it's right there in the answer. And non-vascular plants tend to be short, and vascular plants tend to be what? Tall. Are those trees going to be vascular or non-vascular, you think? Yeah, they're going to be vascular because they're tall. They have to be tall. In order to grow tall, you have to be able to move water and sugar and other nutrients through your system. You have to have a vascular system to do that. All right, so let's look at classifying. Here are the big headings for classifying plants in general, like for all of life. This is kind of how it works. So you have non-vascular plants, and these are low to the ground little guys, right? They don't have a tube system for moving sugar, water, nutrients, minerals through their body. Then under vascular plants, you have two subheadings. You have seedless vascular and seeded vascular. And under seeded vascular, you have non-flowering and flowering. This is your main way to categorize plants. But what you're going to learn is that we actually have different names for each of these, more scientific names. But in general, this is how it is. Does anybody know what that is? Do you know what that is? Okay, when a fern, you know what a fern looks like, right? When a fern sprouts and starts growing up out of the ground, it's curled up just like that until it unfurls itself. And that's called a fiddlehead. If you've ever seen a violin or a fiddle, you know the end of it comes and kind of curls around, like where they hold it. So, well, not where they hold it, where the hand, on the hand end, not the cell. So that's called a fiddlehead. All right. So that'll come back to you in a minute. You'll see it. So we're going to start with bryophyta. These are our seedless, non-vascular plants. And the way you remember this one, there's a memory trick for each of these, and you can write down the memory tricks if it helps you. But for bryophyta, if you remember that Bryce likes his mossy carpet, and there he is just chilling on his mossy carpet. If you remember Bryce likes his mossy carpet, you remember that bryophytes are mosses, and therefore they are going to be seedless and non-vascular. And he is just really relaxed. So, mosses. They have green flat structures that resemble true leaves, but they're not really true leaves, which absorb water and nutrients. Some mosses have little branches. They have traits that are adaptations to dry land, such as stomata, to present on the stems of the sporophyte. We're going to talk about stomata in lab today, but they're tiny little holes, openings on the leaves, and they look like this. They have little cells on either side that are called guard cells that can close or open the little hole to let gas in or out. And that's what they do, just like this. And you're going to be looking at them in lab today. Mosses are anchored to the substrate. So whatever they're growing on, a tree, a ground, a rock, right? Anchored to the substrate by what we call rhizoids, which originate from the base of the gametophyte. And you'll learn this that mosses live in, they have alternation of generations. They live in different stages of their reproductive cycle, basically. Moss follows a cycle of alternation of generations. Gametophytes form male and female gametophores, which fertilize to form a sporophyte, and spores are released from a sporophyte to produce new gametophytes. The concentric tissue around the mouth of the capsule on these little guys. You ever look at a moss sometimes? If you look real close at a moss, you'll see these little stems, and then they have these little capsules on top. They look almost like little golf clubs turned upside down, if you've ever seen that. So they have this triangular close-fitting opening and it goes pop and it opens up and releases their spores. And that's how they make more moss. Then you have liverworts and hornworts, and these are very cool. The liverworts are the little flat ones, and some of them have little cups. Do you see the little cups? It's like a little flat leaf with a little cup on it, right? And then the hornworts are tall like that, and they tend to look a little more spiny or spiky. The leaves of liverworts are lobate and green structures similar to the lobes of the liver. So that's why they're named liverworts, because they're shaped like a liver, right? While hornworts have narrow pipe-like structures. The gametophyte stage is the dominant stage in both liverworts and hornworts. However, liverwort sporophytes do not contain stomata while hornworts do. Just basic differences between them. So again, these guys live with alternating generations too. So basically their entire life cycle is, it's like they go from one structure to another structure. It's very different from how plants you're probably more familiar with reproduce. So this is interesting though. They can use these things called pseudoelators, which help them pop their little spores out, and they use water to help with dispersal. So those little cups will fill up with their little spores, and they'll wait for the rain to come, and it will splash the spores out, and then that's how they make more of themselves. So this video has a dude in the woods who shows you exactly how bryophytes are reproducing, and you look really closely at their structures. He kind of pops in and out of frame too. It's kind of funny.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the forest. This is Matt from Indefensive Plants, and today we're talking about the sex lives of bryophytes. Bryophytes being your cornworts, liverworts, and mosses. It's a dreary, wet day here in central Illinois, and that's the perfect time to be talking about this subject. So if you want to find out more, join us. So the form of reproduction that plants inherited from their algal ancestors is called alternation of generations, or metagenesis. And it involves a growth phase, which is asexual, which we're seeing here, called the gametophyte, and a sexual phase, called the sporophyte. Now, this alternation of generations occurs in all plants, but it is most obvious in the bryophytes, or at least easier to see in the bryophytes. So that's why we're going to focus on them today. It's very exciting and very interesting to learn about, and it's so different from what you and I expect out of sexual reproduction. So this is a little liverwort called Frulania, and like most bryophytes, it's small because it has to be. You see, bryophytes came onto the scene long before vascular tissue ever evolved, which means getting water to and from their cells is kind of difficult. They have to rely on osmosis to get water and diffusion to get the nutrients they need. That means if they get too big, they wouldn't be able to supply the rest of their body with these requirements. So the world of bryophytes happens on a miniature scale, and it's one that really is best appreciated with a hand lens or a microscope. But for today, we're going to just be enjoying them on trees and on the ground and on rock. Bryophytes' ties to water go even deeper. They simply can't sexually reproduce without it. You see, like us, their sperm or male gametes are flagellated. They need water to swim through. Now, at the tips of each one of these stems are housed the reproductive structures. If they're male, they're called antheridia. If they're female, they're called archegonia. And when it rains and water gets sloshed around, it inevitably picks up some of those sperm. And that continuous column of water allows the sperm to swim to where they find the female archegonia. And once they find those, they can fertilize them. And from that, you will see the sporophyte. So without water, there would be no sexual reproduction for the bryophytes. It's something that their algal ancestors have left them. It's a
So
really
I'm going to
cool...
pause him here, but the rest of it's in your email and in your resources if you want to watch the rest of it. So now let's talk about seedless vascular plants. So our non-vascular plants were bryophytes, right? Our seedless vascular plants, we're going to go with Phyllocinophyta. And the way you remember Phyllocinophyta is Felicity likes her fiddle. And there she is with her fiddle in front of a fern. So you can picture her in front of a little fern in her little green dress with her little fiddle. And the reason we remember fiddle is because remember I said ferns come up and they have that thing called a fiddle head. And it curls around just like the end of her fiddle there. So Phyllocinophyta, Phyllocinophytes. So Felicity likes her fiddle. That'll help you remember. So both forms of vascular tissue, xylem and phloem, can move fluids throughout the body, the plant body, even against the force of gravity. That's a cross section of a stem, and you can see different types of tissue because they've stained different colors based on what they're made of. So we have xylem, okay, and this is what is used to take minerals from the roots to the shoots and leaves, okay? And so this is taking minerals and whatnot from the roots up to the rest of the tree. And it is usually, as it'll tell you right here, they're arranged near the edge of the stem with the phloem on the outside and the xylem on the inside. So if you look at this, that's the xylem in the middle. All right, now your other main type of vascular tissue is phloem. And this is what takes all of the sugar produced in the leaves and other materials and brings them down to the roots. And the way you remember which is phloem. Like xylem is, you can think of xylem as being more active. It has to get it up, right, from the roots to the shoots. But with phloem, it's just flowing down. If you can think of flowing down, then you can remember that phloem takes sugar and other materials downward. And it's on the outside. So if you look at this, you've got, that would be xylem in the middle, but phloem towards the outside. So phloem's going to be, and if you take the bark off a tree, it's the layer of tissue just beneath the bark before you get into like the useful wood, I guess is a good way to put it. It's next to the wood. So what are the types of seedless vascular plants? Seedless vascular plants include mosses, horsetails, and ferns. I'm going to skip this one, but you can watch it later. This shows you how ferns reproduce, a fern life cycle. But mosses, I'm sorry, not mosses, club mosses. This one in this picture is a club moss, by the way. Horsetails you don't see as often around here. And you see ferns. Ferns grow in the wild around here, right? Like there's ferns out there, plenty of ferns. You could go find them. So now we'll talk about gymnosperms. Okay, so gymnosperms are seeded plants that don't flower. What kind of a plant is that? Can you tell what that is? Yeah, some kind of it's a conifer of some kinds, what we call them. Cones, right? It has cones. It's some kind of a coned tree. So a pine or something similar to that. So the way you remember gymnosperms is Jim likes ice cream cones. And there's Jim with his ice cream cone. And if you can remember that cones go with gymnosperms, then you'll remember that these are the trees that have their seeds in their cones. Have you ever seen a flower on a pine tree? They don't make flowers, but they do make seeds. Their seeds tend to be in some sort of a cone structure. So let's look. The first kind are called neophytes. And these consist of only 3 genera, so only 3 genus, right? Of woody plants grouped in the gymnosperms. They have only 70 species, and they differ from other gymnosperms in having vessel elements that are found in flowering plants. So there's only 70 of these particular type, these neophytes. And then there are these cycads. Okay. Cycads, you may have seen before. There's a house plant called a sago palm that a lot of people have in their house, and it looks kind of like that. It has almost like a pineapple-y looking like structure in it, and it's called a sago palm. It's not really a palm, it's a cycad, but it's a common household plant that you may have seen before. The cycads are woody, they produce seeds, and they produce no flowers or fruit. They look similar to palm trees with branches and stems and a crown of leaf at the top of the tree, but they're not closely related to palm trees. They look like them a little, but they're not related. Their stems are usually unbranched, and fallen leaves of the past leaf scars and the entire encircle the system. You ever notice how a palm tree, when it loses its leaves, when they fall off, it leaves a scar on the stem? That's why palm tree stems look like they do. Trunks look like they do. The same thing happens in cycads, even though they're not that closely related. And the roots of cycads look very unusual and is known as coloroid roots because they have a similar shape to coral. Think about how coral looks. That's how the roots of a cycad look. So not like the roots of a tree that you're used to. Then we have ginkgos. You ever heard of ginkgo? Ginkgo biloba. A lot of people will take ginkgo biloba as a supplement, like a vitamin supplement. So ginkgos have one living species, ginkgo biloba. That's it. And it's a deciduous tree. What does it mean to be deciduous? Do you know?
It
Turns colors and drops leaves. Yeah, deciduous trees drop their leaves. Okay. So a ginkgo is a gymnosperm that looks like a flowering plant because it looks like a tree that would drop its leaves, but it's closer related to a pine tree. Even though, see the leaves? See the big broad leaves? Those don't look like it should be related to a pine tree. There is a ginkgo in this neighborhood on Sterling, and every fall it turns the brightest shade of like golden yellow. It's beautiful. So like cycads, ginkgo bears microsporangia and megasporangia on separate trees. So not a flowering tree, even though it looks like it should be. And then lastly are conifers. So pinophyta is made up of living and fossil gymnosperm plants that usually have needle-shaped evergreen leaves and seeds attached to scales of a woody bracted cone. So gymnosperm literally means naked seed. Why are the seeds naked in comparison to what? Where do you find most seeds? Think about it. You ever see seeds in your kitchen or in your lunchbox? Where are they usually?
Inside the
Inside of a fruit. Yes, Evan. Inside of a fruit. They're usually inside of a fruit or inside of a shell or something like that. But in gymnosperms, that pine cone opens up and all those seeds fall out, right? They're not inside of a nut or a fruit in the traditional sense. So these are conifers. So neophytes, cycads, ginkgos, and conifers are your main gymnosperms. And I may come back to this one, but I want to make sure I get through all the slides first. Okay, now we go to angiosperms. These are our seeded flowering plants. We have more of these than any other type of plant, okay? Tons and tons because they're very successful. If you remember that Angie likes flowers, there she is with her flowers. Remember, Jim likes ice cream cones. Bryce likes his mossy blanket. Felicity likes her fiddle. Angie likes flowers. This will help you remember angiosperms is the term for your flowering plants. So how do angiosperms reproduce? That looks to me like the center of a hibiscus flower. If you've ever seen a hibiscus flower, they look a lot like that. So angiosperms have unique reproductive organs known as flowers. Flowers contain ovaries which surround and protect the seeds. Flowers are the reproductive structures of flowering plants. When you see flowers, it is because it is its reproductive structure. Now, if you look at a flower, here's a diagram. All right, and we're going to actually do some dissection of flowers in a couple weeks. So if you look here, here's how a flower starts, and then this shows you what becomes of it when it develops into a fruit. So you have an ovary down here, and then you have the little leaf at the bottom is called a calyx. And then you have a big tall piece called a pistil. And then at the top of the pistil, they have what's called a style, which is sort of the narrow part, which leads to like a little bulb. And then the little bulb at the top has a tiny hole in it, and that's called a stigma. And then you see these little yellow guys are called anthers, and they're at the top of little tiny threads called filaments. And then what happens is the anthers have the male gametes on them. So basically, pollen is sperm. Okay, so pollen are your male gametes, and the pollen will land on the stigma, and then it will make its way all the way down to the ovary, and that's where your female gametes are. And when that's fertilized, you get a fruit. So when you're eating a fruit, you're eating an ovary that's been fertilized by pollen. So you're eating basically that it's within the ovary are all those little all the seeds that have been fertilized, right? So then you have this all of this fruit. What is the purpose of the fruit? Why does it advantageous for an apple tree to make apples? Like, why? Well, let me ask you this. If you're a deer and you eat an apple that's laying on the ground, you've now eaten the seeds, right? You've eaten that plant seeds. And what are you going to do after you eat it? You're going to poop it out. And you're going to poop it out in a pile of poop, which is great fertilizer, right? So the chances those seeds are going to grow, there you go. It's not only about landing those seeds in a nice pile of poopy fertilizer, but it's also about spreading them out. Now those seeds have been moved away from that tree, the plant that made them, to another location. So you can make now a little baby tree over here. So it's about spreading their fertilized seeds out, spreading their zygotes out so they can make new babies elsewhere. It's about fertilizing them, all of the above. So if you look here, that's a tomato blossom. You can see how that ovary becomes the tomato and the ovules become the seeds. Right? Okay, so we have different types of fruit. We have fruit that is dry, and these types are within capsules that have to open and let them out, right? Peas grow in a pod like that, don't they? Peas are all individual seeds, but they grow in a pod, and that pod has to be opened in order for the seeds to come out. Same thing with mimosas. You know, mimosa trees make those pink puffy flowers in the spring. They're the same way. And then we have these guys. You recognize all of these, I bet, don't you? Dandelion, yeah? The little seeds come off. They're little tiny, and they have the little poof at the top, and what do they go? Float away, right? They go elsewhere. Yeah, you blow them, right? That you're spreading out their seeds to make more dandelions elsewhere. And then look at this. What do you call those? The maple seeds. What do you call those? You have a word for that? We call those helicopters. Do you call them helicopters? When they fall from the tree, they spin. When they catch the wind, then they float away. Again, that's the point, floating away. And then you have grain like corn, nuts like acorns. And then we have what we call fleshy fruit. And that would be like apples and cherries and cucumbers. Cucumbers are fruits, right? Tomatoes, all the above. So what about seeds? We have monocots and dicots, and they're named for the number of seeds, leaves, or cotyledons in the plant embryo. Monocots have one seed, leaf, and dicots have two. All right, what does that mean? So we'll look here. Monocots, an example of a monocot, has a single cotyledon versus two cotyledons in dicots. Have you ever taken a pea and been able to split a pea in half, or a kidney bean in half, or a navy bean in half? They will divide right in half because they have two cotyledons. They call them seed leaves. They have two pieces in them. A peanut is the same way. You take a peanut, can you split a peanut in half into two little peanut halves? There's a little flat where they come together, right? So that would be a dicot. Monocots have a single cotyledon. Corn is a good example. You can't split corn, right? Now, when monocots grow and they germinate, they make a straight bladed leaf like that with little parallel veins. When dicots grow, they make branched leaves. Monocots have flowers in multiples of 3. So 6 leaves, six petals or 12 petals, always multiples of 3. Whereas dicots have flower parts in multiples of 4 or 5. And stems are vascular but bundled throughout, whereas they're arranged here. And many roots spread out there, one main root for a dicot. So you can see how different they are. I actually have, where? These are a little harder because they do grow from a bulb. But these have 6 petals, right? 6 petals. And then they also, you've seen daffodil leaves, right? They're straight bladed leaves. So is it a monocot or a dicot? What's it going to be? It's going to be a monocot because its flower parts are in multiples of 3, and it's got parallel veins on its leaves. So plant life cycles. Plants have complex life cycles that include 2 different stages. They have a sporophyte stage and a gametophyte stage. So in your sporophyte stage, it's in the life cycle of plants with alternating generations. So a lot of plants will do this, but like we said, it's most obvious with your bryophytes, with your mosses and whatever. And your gametophyte stage is going to be like really when they're reproducing here. So this is what I was talking about. Moss sometimes has those little bulbs on top. You don't need to know too much about that. So what is a bryophyte? What does Bryce like? His mossy blanket. So what's a bryophyte? What kind of plant? Moss. What's the characteristic we're using to categorize it? It is a it doesn't have something. It's so little. It's non-vascular plant, right? Bryce likes his mossy carpet. So bryophytes are non-vascular plants. All right. And what's a phyllocinophyte? What was the little mouse for phyllocinophyte? Who was that? Do you remember? Her name was Felicity. Yeah, and she liked her fiddle. So what kind of plants are phyllocinophytes? They're vascular, but they don't have no what? No seeds, right? No seeds. Ferns don't make seeds. Seedless vascular plants like ferns. So there's Felicity, right? Okay. What's a gymnosperm? You remember a gymnosperm? It's the one with cones. Very good, because Jim likes his ice cream cones. So if it has cones, it's a vascular plant. It has seeds, but it doesn't make what? What don't pine trees make? No flowers. No flowers. So it's a flowerless, seeded vascular plant. And Jim likes his ice cream cones. All right. So then lastly, what did angiosperm mean? There was a little mouse for this. What does she like? Angie likes her flowers, right? So angiosperms are what kind of plants? Flowering plants. Yes, you got it. Flowering plants. Very good. All right, so I'm going to go back to those videos real quick. I wanted to make sure we got through all those before we watch those. And we're going to watch this one on what are gymnosperms.
Protect your dreams.
Yeah.
Isn't this the dream, Grandpa? American Family Insurance. Before you eat, let AI reveal the truth. AI
Okay.
Health Shopper. Scan any food label. AI off.
All right.
Do you want to know what gymnosperm plants are? In this Daily Eco video, we're going to give you its definition, explain its characteristics, and its reproduction. We'll also give you some examples and detail what differentiates them from angiosperm plants. Let's get started. What are gymnosperm plants? Gymnosperm plants are vascular plants and spermatophytes. But what does this mean? Well, they are produced from a seed and they also generate seeds. The Greek word gymno means naked, while sperma means seed. Therefore, its name indicates that its seeds are naked and do not develop in a closed ovary as fruit would. These plants tend to develop in all areas of the world, but with that being said, they are mostly common in cold and Arctic climates. Characteristics of gymnosperm plants. They are really old since they date back to the end of the Carboniferous period. They have vascular tissues that allow them to distribute water and other resources from their roots to their leaves. They produce a seed that does not develop in an ovary. They are woody plants with an arboreal appearance, and they have stems, leaves, roots, and seeds. They are generally plants without flowers or fruits, and they can form cones that generate fertile leaves. Examples of gymnosperm plants. There are 88 genera of gymnosperm plants, among which there are more than 1,000 different species. Some examples are the following. Pinophytas, also known as conifers, are the most important group of gymnosperms that includes around 600 species of woody plants. They are evergreen and have deciduous leaves, generally needle-shaped such as pines. Psychedophytas, also known as cycads. These are plants similar to palm trees that grow in regions with tropical and subtropical climate. Ginkgophytas, which includes several extinct species and one that is still living. That's the ginkgo biloba, a deciduous tree that is characterized by its fan-shaped leaves. And ctenophytes. These plants have short stems and long scaly leaves that form vines or small shrubs. Also, did you know that the largest tree in the world is a redwood, which belongs to the group of gymnosperms? Before we continue, let's put you to the test. How tall do you think this tree is? 95 meters tall, 105 meters tall, or 115 meters tall?
What do you guess? C.
The correct answer is C. The tallest tree in the world, called Hyperion, is exactly 115.55 meters tall, which is 179.1 feet tall. Isn't that incredible? How do they reproduce? The female cones contain a scale with 2 ovules, while the smaller male cones are formed by 1 scale and 2 pollen sacs that form.
Those are all
pollen
female
grains.
cones.
Both the pollen grains and the ovules are called gametes because they're the reproductive cells. Reproduction begins when the wind carries the pollen grains to the female flowers, and the pollen tube penetrates to the ovule so that the gametes fuse together and give rise to the zygote. After fertilization, the seed is formed and the female inflorescence transforms into a cone. After a while, this cone opens and releases the seeds that will form new plants when they fall on the ground. Together, both the pollination and the fertilization are a slow progress that can take even more than a year. In addition, the maturation of the seed can take up to 3 years.
All those little cones there, those were the male cones.
Between
Those tiny
gymnosperms
squishy
and
ones.
As mentioned before, gymnosperm bear seeds, while the seeds of angiosperms are covered by a fruit. Gymnosperms are usually perennial plants, while angiosperms are usually seasonal. While gymnosperms have cones, angiosperms typically have flowers. Unlike gymnosperm leaves, which are usually pointy and needle-shaped, angiosperms' leaves are usually flat. In addition, gymnosperm plants are usually woody, while angiosperms are usually herbaceous. Some examples of angiosperm plants are orange trees, sunflowers, lilies, and birch trees. Let us know in the comments below if you have.
There you go. If you look at that picture here in this, hang on. Whoop. Those are the male cones. Those little guys, right? The female cones are the big ones that you step on and say ouch to, right? All right. That sounds good. I think we're good. Y'all can come on in.